It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
What is going on, Lake of the Ozarks? It's time for, can't believe this, our 10th episode of A Cup of Coffee with Will and Chris.
Time flies, man.
Time flies when you're having fun, and the Baylor Bears are having fun. They're national champions for the first time in school history. We'll talk about that. Yeah, didn't take long, and it came all the way down to the national championship between you and Ricky. We'll talk about that, and it's obvious Chris didn't end up winning it all, but at least he was in the running. Yeah. I was done after the first round.
Well, because you had Mizzou going to the Final Four, you know.
I was thinking with my heart. Legendary coach Roy Williams, he's hanging it up. Big trade in the NFL, and a couple local stories we'll talk about. And on top of that, as we talked about, Major League Baseball, they decided to get political, joining the ranks of the NBA and many other big corporations, and they decided to put their name in. We'll break that down and what exactly we think of that and a whole lot more. But first, you can't enjoy summer at Lake of the Ozarks if you're not sleeping good and you're not enjoying what you're sitting in. So you better come by and see our friends right here at Slumberland. Check out what they've got going on.
With so much time at home, I need new furniture.
Right now, during Slumberland's Build Your Room sale, you can revamp any space for only $20, $30, $40 a month. Check out this bedroom set.
Oh, I've got everything I need there.
Okay, how about some options for your living room? Just $20 a month when you spend $1,200 and pay no interest for 5 years.
Love it.
Build your room during our best financing sale of the year.
Well, hello, Slumberland.
Slumberland, that's where it's at, baby.
Yeah. It doesn't get any better than this.
Doesn't get any better. We're recording live. I guess not when you guys see it, but we're recording from the Lake TV studios inside Slumberland at the lake.
Yeah, it's cool, man. And you know, they got something for every room in the house here. So if your wife's doing spring cleaning, this is where you want to go right here, because they got furniture, they got bedding, they got home decor, and they're nice. They're wonderful, nice people.
And, well, if I'm doing spring cleaning, because I got to get some spring cleaning done, this is the place you want to come. And I'm getting some new couch and love seat from here for the new place. So
if I'm doing spring cleaning, the world's coming to an end, because I never do cleaning. So,
it very well may be, because for Gonzaga, the world is coming to an end. Perfect season. Upended and comes to a screeching halt.
This is my bracket. You know, I led wire to wire until the championship game. And then Ricky picked Baylor, and they won. My Gonzaga team lost. And so I lose. I come in second place, and I had to pull out $10 to give it to Ricky this morning.
April 5th will forever be known as King Legs Day.
King Legs.
We must refer to King Legs.
Why is that?
Well, because Ricky did the improbable.
Yeah.
And he won the bracket, and Vegas had him as the lowest odds, even lower than Megan, to win the Lake TV bracket tournament.
What's up with his legs, though? Why do you call him King Legs?
He has the most fascinating legs, and I don't want to dig into it, but you could ask people like Matt Sutcliffe at Bear Bottom. You could ask Mary Kay Von Brendel at the Amphitheater. You could ask Rendy at Squeeze. I mean, they've all had major issues with, but you know, that's not important. What's important is King Legs is sitting on top of the mountain, and if he will for the next year, until, you know what's really funny about this? Like, I was talking to Andrew, you know, our longtime DOP at Lake TV, and man, we both kind of were upset, because honestly, I'd have rather lost to Megan than lose to Ricky.
I know.
In this.
Well, he kind of rubs it in a little bit.
Oh, man, does he ever. You know. He didn't sleep. He was texting me every hour on the hour, you know, the night of the national championship. He's posted on Facebook how good it feels. If he would have went to bed, he would have woke up in the best mood of his life, but he never slept. So King Legs is happy, and good for him.
Yeah.
I would have rather lost to Megan.
Blind dog finds a bone every once in a while. Right?
That's right.
You know, so there you go.
That's right. So he gets the W. We love the guy. And speaking of you led wire to wire, that was really the case for Baylor in the national championship game. They got off to a hot start. Of course, Suggs got in foul trouble early for Gonzaga. I think that charge early on was a big momentum swing, and once Baylor got up, they really never looked back.
Jumped out to a 9-0 lead, and they just couldn't miss. I don't think they missed a three-pointer in the entire first half.
Wow.
They were peaking at the right time. Gonzaga had peaked earlier in the season. They weren't playing their best ball. Congratulations to Baylor. I'm really happy for Baylor, because remember when Coach Drew took over that program, it was in shambles. Coach Dave Bliss had been fired. There was like murder things involved in the whole program. It was bad.
Yeah.
And so Coach Drew comes in there, turns it around, and really happy for Baylor. They're really neat school. They still hang on Christian principles, and so I'm real happy for them.
And Scott Drew, as you mentioned, just an amazing coach, and actually, courtesy of the NCAA, here's what Coach Scott Drew had to say after the big win.
When the best is needed, the best is usually provided. And as RG3 would always say, no pressure, no diamonds. And our guys, the better the opponent, the better they play. And they love being the first. First to win conference since 1950. First to win a national championship. I mean, that really motivates them.
So for Baylor, I mean, what an amazing year. And when I went back and looked at their schedule, first we kind of talked about it before we came on. In December, they had 17-day stretch where they only played one time. And then in February, 3 weeks they didn't play a game. And I saw people talking about maybe that helped them be rested. I think that would actually play against you. So even more impressive for them. And going into the NCAA tournament, if you look at the top 25 AP rankings as it stood going into the tournament, Baylor had beat number 1, number 2, number 5, number 6, number 9, 11, 12, and 13 this year. So this team is good.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at Gonzaga, they had some good wins, obviously, some big wins this year. They had some tough ones in some early tournaments. Not the same style of schedule. And if any question headed into this game was, can Gonzaga hang with Baylor as far as their physicality? And then, of course, their two players in the backcourt, both future pros, and they proved to be too much for Baylor.
And remember,
or for Gonzaga.
They didn't have a tournament last year.
Right.
And Baylor was really good last year, too. So there's a possibility that they would have been back-to-back champs. Of course, we'll never know.
Right.
But because they didn't have a tournament last year. And, it's funny when a team like Baylor comes out of nowhere and wins, kind of like they did this year. And I say out of nowhere, I mean they were ranked number 2, but they've never done anything before, gone this far and stuff like that. And when we were filling out our brackets, I said, well, Baylor always chokes. So I was surprised I even had them going to the championship game. But I tell you what, that is over now. They are for real.
That's incredible. So big congratulations to the Baylor program, Coach Scott Drew, and that team. And congrats to you for being second. And let me see that real quick.
That's fun. That's fun.
You know what I think of this year's bracket?
Yeah, there you go. There. That's about what it's worth.
Congratulations to Ricky for getting the W. You already paid up. I have to pay up.
Yeah.
But I was looking forward. You said if you win, you were treating everyone to pizza.
I was going to do a pizza party.
Well, you know what? We're going to make sure that we hope and we put pressure on Ricky
I think so too.
to do the same. All right, so we're going to stick in college basketball. One of the greats ever, hanging it up, Roy Williams.
Yeah.
Calls it quits. What do you think? What's your initial reaction?
I remember watching Roy, because I'm old, right? I remember watching Roy Williams as bench coach for Dean Smith at North Carolina before he took the Kansas job.
Yeah.
And he was just like a tall, lean, nerdy kind of a guy. And I'm thinking, who's that guy? It turns out to be one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time. Classy guy, always a classy guy. I saw him a couple years ago at the Sweet 16 in Kansas City. They lost to Auburn that night. He was still a classy guy. So tough to see it go. College basketball is changing a lot, not for the better.
Right.
A lot of people are thinking, and a lot of people think that's why he's just getting out. It's time, time to go.
Well, he did have that transfer that went into the transfer protocol, and that obviously over the last couple of years, the changes makes him immediately eligible. And for a guy like Roy Williams, who's put all this sweat years in, and as you said, just an amazing coach. What he did at KU, 2 Final Fours, lost in a championship, goes on to North Carolina, 5 Final Fours, 3 national championships, one of the greatest to ever grace the sidelines of college basketball. And I can't disagree with him for saying it's time to hang it up, because he doesn't necessarily love the direction, as you said, that college basketball is headed. And at this point,
and he's 70 now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Time to hang it up. And he actually turned out to be a better coach championship-wise than the great Dean Smith.
Yeah.
Which is pretty shocking.
Yeah, and I thought he had a great shot and could have, if had a couple things went different, would have won one at KU as well. But so shout out to the great Roy Williams who calls it quits. And now we're going to transition to the NFL and this trend of teams over the last 5 to 6 years throwing their house at the top quarterback or one of the top quarterbacks early, only then in a couple of years to let them walk away for little to nothing. That trend continues as the Jets send former number 3 overall pick Sam Darnold packing. He's headed to Carolina. And not only is it shocking, because Sam Darnold, as you know, was a huge prospect. I think he played at USC, coming out in 2018, was the 3rd overall pick. Of course, same draft that produced Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield. And a lot of people felt like Darnold was the guy from that draft class. Well, he's headed to Carolina. And what the Jets are getting back for him when you give up the 3 overall pick, they're getting a 6th this year. And then next year, they're going to get a 2nd and a 4th. And, of course, they have the 2nd overall pick this year in the draft, so they're expected to take a quarterback. But what do you think of all these teams letting their quarterback go and not necessarily getting a ton in return?
I think a lot of it has to do with the team and not the quarterback. Because a lot of times, like Josh Allen, he was taken in that same draft. He's turned out to be a stud star.
Yeah.
But he's in a better program.
Right.
The Bills are just a better franchise. Jets suck. And they're quarterback killers. So Darnold gets taken by them. He didn't really have a chance. No line, no coach, and so he was destined to fail there. Probably not his fault. There's a chance he can now resurrect his career going somewhere else. And maybe this will work out better for the Jets because maybe they can, with all these draft picks, put together a decent team, and maybe the franchise can get their stuff together and actually work it right, because franchises have turned around, and so let's, I guess, hope for the Jets' sake that they can do that. But I don't necessarily think Darnold is a bust. I think that the Jets are a bust, and they busted him.
It doesn't matter who would have went to
New
York.
I mean, it could have been Josh Allen could have gone there. Peyton Manning could have gone there and, just crashed.
New York outside of Buffalo, that's where careers go to die. Whether it's the Giants or the Jets over the last, 6 to 7 years.
Although the Giants, the Giants did win those 2 Super Bowls under Eli Manning
and Tom Coughlin.
Yeah.
But since those days, and since Coughlin left and is back in Jacksonville, was in Jacksonville in administration and management, New York's really went down quick. And the only
that's okay.
Football team.
I don't like New York, so
the only football team in New York that matters, Western New York, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Nobody. Wait, Andrew says that one.
Yeah.
This one, that one.
You look at that one.
Oh, I got to look at that one. Okay. One more time. I'll try it again. Okay.
So.
Nobody circles the bandwagon like the Buffalo Bills. Who says that all the time? You know?
I have no
Chris
idea.
Berman. He's a big Bills fan.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Big Bills fan. That's his saying. All right. So from sports, probably your and I's favorite. And man, I'm kind of sad. College basketball's over.
Yeah.
I don't care about the NBA.
We're so, can I say pissed?
Yeah.
We're so pissed right now at Major League Baseball, we can't even hardly spit.
It's nasty. Do you want me to tell them why?
Yeah, you tell them why. Yeah.
Because the All-Star game was supposed to be held in Atlanta this year, right? All right, so MLB decides it's time to get political. They're going to join the ranks of the NBA, and they're going to not necessarily take an educated stance. They're going to do whatever makes the majority, and I wouldn't even say the majority of the population, I'd say the majority of mainstream media feel good. And so they decide that because of Georgia's new voter ID laws, they're throwing up their hands. We just can't be part of this.
Right.
We're pulling the All-Star game out of Atlanta. So here's what's interesting to me, Chris. Did you notice there's already states with voter ID laws in place?
And there's like 30 or 35 of them, right? With voter ID. Thank God. Not that it helped in the last election, but, hey.
Well, here's the weird thing. It's all smoke and mirrors, and it's sparking quite the response, especially big corporations and big tech. So we got a poll out of Atlanta because these new voter ID laws, which we'll get into what those voter ID laws actually are here in just a minute. But the whole point is we want to fight injustice and voter oppression. And the whole deal here is, right, oppression. We can't let people be oppressed. So a look ahead to the Olympics in 2022, and those happen to be held in China. Okay, so first in China, they're persecuting Christians right now.
Right.
Literally, they're capturing Christians.
And not just Christians, but Muslims and every other group like that too.
Any practicing religion. They're capturing them and asking, you have to denounce your faith or they will torture you. Okay, so pretty sick, right? On top of that, I think that the China virus started over
didn't
there.
that come over with Wuhan, right?
Yeah, and so that would be another reason to potentially boycott.
That's at least two.
That.
Yeah.
And if we want to talk about oppression and what's wrong, how about the 10-year-old slaves working in sweatshops to make product that now our president and administration are making easier to get into the country opposed to American jobs? It just seems a little bit hypocritical. Maybe I'm wrong. If you want to talk about oppression, let's start with that.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so really this whole thing, it's the woke millennials being brainwashed with this progressive new agenda in colleges and supported by, like I said, big tech. So do you think that they've done something good for black people by pulling the All-Star game out of Atlanta? No, instead you've ripped away $100 million in revenue in tourism from the city of Atlanta.
And from the county right there in Atlanta that actually voted for Biden, right?
Yeah.
Legitimately. And they ripped $100 million right out of their hands. I mean, that's a howdy fine thank you.
Well, it's just weird because you look at New York, they already have stricter voter ID laws in place. There's a shorter window in New York right now for absentee balloting or early voting in New York currently, a shorter window. And you have more hoops to jump through in the state of Missouri and in the state of New York if you want to cast an absentee ballot. So these things are already in place. And then you look at where they moved the All-Star game to, Colorado.
Yeah, and they've got, I think, stricter ID voting laws than Atlanta, right?
So did they even look at what the new bill that's been passed in Georgia is? Because I don't feel like they have. What they've done is they've looked and they've taken pieces that look good, they can paint a certain picture with. And the sad thing is, the American people are drinking from the Kool-Aid and loving it. I think it's sick. Now, cool thing is, we have an amazing viral video of the week this week.
Okay.
Ami Horowitz, and he hits the streets at Cal Berkeley to talk to educated millennials on...
Is there such a thing?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not.
Okay.
Pay attention to this video and ask yourself what you think at the end of this.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and I'm here in Berkeley, California to find out if voter ID laws suppress the black vote. Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist and they're bad. I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Now I'm here in East Harlem to ask black people their thoughts on what you just heard. Do you have ID normally? You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. That's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy camera?
I know, right?
That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that, on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid could figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it. My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually
Unlimited.
Unlimited data.
Mm-hmm.
I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process was.
I just think that's ignorant. Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the word I'm hearing a lot.
Ignorant.
Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
You're judging somebody, but you're judging them because they black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Are you
Love
cool?
showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you have to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
I loved, over and over, you heard that ignorant. And to say that black Americans aren't smart enough, can't afford internet or phone data, or as I quote, just not knowledgeable enough to get the information and go through the process of getting an ID is not only offensive and racist in itself, but it's just that. It's ignorant, Chris. And, I mean, people, you're being brainwashed right now, and I, for one, I'm done. I'm actually done with Major League Baseball.
And you're a big Cubs fan.
It breaks my heart. My dogs' names are Rizzo and Santo. And the Cubs manager, David Ross, even came out this week and endorsed and said, good for Major League Baseball. It's like, you know what, David Ross, good for you, because you're going to have a lot less people supporting your team. Sick. And actually, let's look at, because the All-Star game is moving to Colorado, and the crazy thing is, because this is all about oppression and trying to make it harder, they're saying that the right, the conservative agenda, is trying to make it harder for minorities to vote. And some of the things that are in this bill are, you cannot give food and water to people waiting in lines. Okay, here's the reason why, Chris. What if somebody was at the polls waiting in line and all of a sudden you weren't really sure who you were voting for, but someone brought you food and water and then electioneered to you, which is illegal? That's a concern. And with as many voting polls and as many precincts and as many places, it'd be hard to have officials looking at the lines at everywhere, so there's certain rules in place. It's not exactly what it looks like. And look at the list of things you have to do, or the things that you have to show an ID for in this country.
Yeah, I mean, you need an ID to buy alcohol, right? You need an ID to do just about anything of any importance, but not to vote. I mean, I saw something. Coca-Cola's come under fire because they're part of the big liberal thing and against voter IDs and stuff like that, and yet, when you show up at Coca-Cola headquarters, in
Atlanta, Georgia.
In Atlanta, the place where they just ripped the All-Star game out of, you got to have your ID to get in. I mean, so there's a double standard there that's freaking ridiculous. I mean, it would be funny if it wasn't so scary.
It's frightening.
Yeah.
And again, you see this woke millennial generation, and it's not their fault. That is what's being taught in universities across this country.
Like those kids we just saw.
Without knowledge, without merit, without facts, they just spew because they've heard it so many times.
Yep.
It's crazy. Now, 5 years ago, if you would have told me this we were at, I would have laughed. And right now, I'm not laughing. Let's look. So since it's moving to Colorado, where you have over a 75% population is white, you know, most of the business owners that are going to benefit around Coors Field and the tax influx and the revenue influx because of all the people into the area, it's going to benefit more white people than it is black people. It actually is going to hurt the city of Atlanta, which is predominantly black business owners and people that voted for Joe Biden. It's like, it's not good on the surface, or it's not as good as it looks on the surface when, and I want to show here just a few of the requirements in the state of Georgia, a few of the things that you would have to have from this list. You have to have one of these things to vote in Colorado. Chris, if you would have said, you know, a few years ago that this would be reality in 2021, like I said, I would have laughed. And I'm not laughing. I think it's just another overwhelming sign that Jesus must be coming back soon. And before I get sick and I want to move on, don't you have like an inspirational quote or something?
I do. You ready for an inspirational
this thing
quote?
Turned around?
Yeah, okay, here you go. So here's this inspirational quote for you from Laird Hamilton. I don't know who Laird Hamilton is, but he says, make sure your worst enemy doesn't live between your own two ears. Make sure your worst enemy doesn't live between your own two ears. That's some good advice.
That's deep.
That is deep, man.
That's heavy.
Absolutely.
Got me over here thinking, going cross-eyed again over here. Any trivia?
Yeah, you ready for some trivia?
I'm ready. I'm feeling lucky.
What is the rarest blood type in humans?
B positive.
Close. AB negative.
AB negative.
Less than 1% of the population is AB negative.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's pretty darn rare. And I think, is it O, blood type O, that crosses all the lines? They use that if they're running short on blood for every blood type, something like that. I'm a doctor. I play one on television.
Got me.
All right. So, hey, we've got Coach Gary Pinkel, University of Mizzou, right? All-time winningest football coach at Missouri. One of your heroes in life,
yeah, baby,
right, is with us on the Spotlight Show this week. So,
yeah. The greatest college football coach to ever grace the state of Missouri. There's like 10 years this guy was Mr. Missouri.
Yep.
I remember every Saturday watching Missouri football, especially when they're in the Big 12 and then transitioned into the SEC, and seeing Coach Pinkel on the sideline with his vest and his white visor, and man, I was just like, man, if I could ever meet that guy.
He loves you. I mean, Coach Pinkel loves you. So
probably tired of me asking for photos and autographs, and I had to sign a release. Missy told me I'm no longer allowed to ask him for selfies and autographs, and I have to stay within 5 feet of him. So I don't know if he loves me as much as you'd think he does.
Be sure to join, watch the Spotlight Show right here on Lake TV. You can see that weekdays at 8, 3, and 8. Coach Gary Pinkel. Next week, Jason Jones, who is with Old Kinderhook, but even the reason we're having him on is because he does so much in the community. He does mobile food pantry and just a whole lot of things to raise money for the community.
From Mr. Missouri and Gary Pinkel, who, amazing story, you get to talk about, was it hard for him to step down and retire,
right,
to Mr. Lake of the Ozarks, Jason Jones. So got to check out that Lake TV Community Spotlight. I know a couple weeks ago or last week you had Dr. Laura Nelson from the School of the Osage. I mean, just some incredible guests you're bringing on your show, and man, I'm excited to see some of those interviews, and there's a lot of other exciting stuff on Lake TV.
Real quick, because we're down to the last few seconds here, but Aquapalooza is moving again, right? They moved it out of Dog Days earlier, and now the State Patrol said you can't have it over there at Camden on the Lake and Shady Gators. So now it's moving where?
Thank God. Headed over to Captain Ron's, home of the Lake of the Ozarks shootout.
That's right.
July 17th, which is Saturday. You can connect with Captain Ron's Facebook page, of course, at Lake TV. We'll keep you updated. We're super excited about that.
I love that. And speaking of Captain Ron's, come join us at Sing Your Heart Out Sunday night. Yeah, we have so much fun.
We
really do. He MCs it. I'm a judge. And
DJ Kyle Miller, best DJ at the Lake area in Missouri. He DJs it. We have some great other judges.
There might be a little
prizes.
Beer that gets drunk there. Maybe.
Drunk. That doesn't sound like, that kind of does sound like the end of Sunday night.
It gets sipped. There.
We have a heck of a good time, and it's presented by Roof Masters, a $100 weekly cash prize, and then a big VIP LOZ package will be awarded to the finale winner on May 23rd, so make sure you look ahead to that. Chris, we're actually out of time.
I know. This half hour flies every week.
Uncle Chris, Wild Will.
That's right.
We'll see you guys next week.